Hey there guys, Darryl Griffiths from Movie Marker here. I hope you're all very well. If my second favourite chair that I'm sitting in or the t-shirt doesn't give it away, my review today is of Justice League. It has been a rocky road for the project and for Warner Brothers. Projections of 300 million as far as the budget goes. Zack Snyder left in tragic circumstances and of course wishing him all the best and his family after I'm sure what has been a very difficult year. Joss Whedon was brought in by Warner Brothers to continue with the project and go through the extensive reshoots that took place. And it's been a very difficult time with the DCEU so far. Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, while I personally didn't hate it, it didn't quite fully execute the narrative demands of setting up this grand universe. Suicide Squad was god-awful. The less said about that, the better. But Wonder Woman showed promising signs for the characters and this universe as a whole. So, Justice League, where are we at this time around? We have Batman, of course, Ben Affleck, and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. They are the spearheads of a new alliance that they are trying to form after the death of Superman. The world is in mourning, and a great threat is lurking in the form of Steppenwolf, voiced by Ciaran, Hinds, and his legion of parademons that threaten the world. And enter new recruits: Cyborg, Aquaman, and The Flash, played by Ezra Miller, Jason Momoa, and Ray Fisher. And of course, they all have their own agendas and doubts about joining forces with Batman and Wonder Woman. But desperate times, desperate measures. They all have very different dynamics and ways of dealing with things, and it's quite an unorthodox team thrown together by Batman and Wonder Woman. That is the basic premise. Now, the reshoots, there's been a lot of talk. It's been barely a day has gone by this year where there hasn't been some sort of news about Justice League, and it has prompted much doubt within fans. I've certainly been worried about it. And the trailers were quite protracted and prolonged. And is it a case of they've given too much away, or is it going to be a classic case of the trailers not necessarily representing the final product? Now, there's a lot to unpick from Justice League. I'll start with the positives. The character work here is genuinely great from what we get. Batman, Ben Affleck, once again, he was the saving grace for Batman vs Superman. I felt like Henry Cavill's Superman got sidelined in his own film, to be honest with you. But it brought out the best in Affleck. And again, it's a bit of a course correction with his character this time. There was a lot of talk about his character's motives in Dawn of Justice, and I feel like Warner Brothers has had to sort of correct it to try and win fans that were dismayed by that back over. And there's a lot of self-doubt with him. He realises now that he's not enough on his own, and there is a great deal of regret and guilt that surrounds his dynamic with Superman from the previous film. And it is very well portrayed by Affleck. Wonder Woman, once again, she was fantastic in her own film. It is easily the highlight of the universe so far. And Gal Gadot, once again, there is great elegance, there's feistiness and fierceness about her. And there's a great maternal instinct in terms of bringing in these new recruits that she sort of displays throughout the film, which is a very effective quality of her character. The new recruits, Jason Momoa as Aquaman, I feared he was going to be the kind of wisecracking bro kind of type for the film, but he brings great surprising gravitas to Aquaman, and he has great interplay with his fellow characters. The Flash is easily the highlight for me. Ezra Miller, I've been such a fan of the guy for a long time, and to see him in a big budget blockbuster and display his great sense of wit and quirkiness. There's some great little references. There's a particular Pet Sematary one which is fantastic, which he brings to the table, and he just brings a really fun, excitable and an enthusiasm to the role that lights up the film when it gets a little bit dour and murky in places. And probably the revelation here is Ray Fisher's Cyborg. In the trailers I found him quite monotonous, and I thought he was going to be quite one note in the role of Cyborg. There is a great deal of empathy that you gather from the character. Of course, going through a severe accident and how his character came to be with all this CGI that's going on. And I know people were quite iffy about it from the footage that we've seen so far, but the heart and soul of the character does shine through in the moments that he does get individually. Of course, as great as the character work is with the Justice League, the villain is pretty awful, if I'm honest. Ciaran Hinds' Steppenwolf there's nothing distinct about him. The one saving grace is quite prominent. He's a regular threat throughout the film, which is refreshing. But rather like with the Marvel films, a villain problem lurks within the Warner Brothers DCEU still, and the CGI is quite shoddy in places, and he almost looks like a video game character. And that's something that Warner Brothers have got to work out, and along with Marvel as well. We need, I think, if they want to raise the stakes like they do with these films as the end game draws near, particularly for Marvel Infinity War, and obviously and how DC progressed with this, they need to have a stronger threat at its core and provide a greater sense of conflict with the characters. I think the action sequences are solid. I don't think there's anything particularly remarkable about them. Particularly the third act, I think the CGI, again, it does make it a little bit hard to decipher certain fight sequences within it. But it's all perfectly observed from the comic books. I just think the CGI and the extensive reshoots do sort of show a little bit wear and tear in terms of the characters. And I think the reshoots do show, I think, particularly in the middle act, I have to say, it really tries to marry Whedon's sensibilities with Schneider's visuals and very distinctive aesthetic. And it doesn't always quite gel in the middle act. And I think with the mandate that Warner Brothers put out for the film to get it down to 2 hours, I think it shows, particularly in the first, I'd say half an hour, in introducing the characters. I think it needed far more time to flesh it out. And I think it's a sign of Warner Brothers trying to protect its investment. I mean, upping the budget to 300 million with the reshoots. And from a standard business standpoint, I kind of understand what they're trying to do. You know, keep it under 2 hours, saturate the market for its release, and get as many showtimes in there as possible, and get audiences in. But at the same time, it's not television. It doesn't have so many hours and so many episodes to draw out the end game. And I think it's a dangerous game that they're playing, because we've had this before with Batman vs Superman, we had it with Suicide Squad, and it's highly likely with Schneider bailing like he did in unfortunate circumstances, there is going to be, you know, a great demand for an extended cut here, and I'm certainly one of them after seeing it. I mean, there was a lot of talk that it was about 2 hours 50, and to get it down to 2 hours, you can see the severity in the way it's been spliced together at times. But for all the messy narrative structure and the simplicity that it sort of boils down to, I mean, it's a standard MacGuffin plot. We have the mother boxes, as they're called, that Steppenwolf is chasing. It's no different to what we've had, say, like the Tesseract in the Marvel films with Avengers Assemble, or the Infinity Stones. It's no different, really. And that's what Justice League boils down to. I think it's an enjoyable film. I think it's far better than the reviews have suggested. There's a great deal of fun to be had with the characters, and I think the work that they've put in clearly shows, but it does feel like it's been sterilised a little bit, and a bit spliced down to get within this running time. But Justice League is far from the DC disaster we anticipated, and there is great fun to be had, and there's a great deal of promise with this film carrying it forward. And I have to say, the post-credit sequences are well worth sticking around for. There's 2 in all. One's quite playful, and the other, you'll have a nice surprise in the end credits. And the worst kept secret of all, of course, Superman. I won't say what happens with the character, but it's a great correction, along with Batman. I think they've really got the character nailed down and got it back to what audiences are used to with Superman, and I think it does provide some great moments within its structure. But that is a wrap on my review of Justice League. I sincerely hope you've enjoyed it and haven't waffled too much. There's a lot to unpick with Justice League here, and the debate will rage on about extended cuts and so forth with fans, and along with myself, I certainly want one. That's for sure. Along with the Junkie XL score as well, because Danny Elfman was also drafted in after Schneider. So, but that is a wrap on my review of Justice League. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel below, and I have other reviews on Movie Marker currently. That films released. We've got Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool, which is out this week. That's a great alternative if you're not fussed about the comic book films. And next Friday we've got Battle of the Sexes with Steve Carell and Emma Stone. That is a great crowd pleaser as well. But that is a review wrapped up of Justice League. I've been Darryl Griffiths, and I will speak to you soon. Take care. Bye for now, guys. Thank you.